Go. Taking a peek at the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Ford Bronco. Now, one thing to point out is that, see how there's a little notification there? If you ever get any notification, you can just push the OK button in order to get rid of it. And just like that, my low fuel warning is just about gone. It's still there. Yeah, there we go. It's gone. But I'll walk you through everything that you need to know about the Bronco steering wheel as well as the cluster. So first thing to point out, this one doesn't have the adaptive cruise control system. So the adaptive cruise is your set it and forget it cruise. So if you had it there, you'd have a few additional buttons in order to, it's essentially distance indicator. But if you want to walk through on the adaptive cruise system, you'll find it in the description of this video. But using the cruise is straightforward. So you toggle it on, and then once you get to speed, you can then set and then increase or decrease 1 kilometer or 1 mile per hour at a time. The only other difference with the adaptive is that you'd also have buttons for lane centering and then also for the distance indicator. So how close or far are you away from the vehicle that's in front of you? This button is going to be for your lane keeping system. So you can toggle it on or off, and with it off, it actually gives you a little bit more screen real estate too. So you can see there, it kind of gives you a bit more because it's gotten rid of that card that was taking up a few of the other space there as well. You've got volume rockers, so increase, decrease volume. Along this side, you can also change between songs, radio stations, or presets. So on the media screen there, you can see you push there in order to jump between different saved presets. But let's say if you're on AM or FM, you could then do a press and hold instead if you wanted to be able to seek. So it's not super intuitive. It likes to tune to different stations sometimes, but you do at least have the flexibility of being able to jump between presets that way. Or you can push the voice command prompt. To be able to change songs, radio stations. You can navigate using your voice. You can even change the climate using your voice inside of this thing too, which is amazing. Love it. And then you've got a series of other buttons here. So you've got a basic menu button to jump between different options, a basic back button, up, down, and OK. Then there's also the option of answering and hanging up on a phone call. The steering wheel inside of this thing is also going to be manual telescoping. So just by your left knee, there's a release there, and you can go in, out, up, and down to create that perfect position. Once you find it, click it in order to lock it back into place. You've also got a few different options there. So you've got a little button there in order to be able to have your windshield wiper fluid going. You can then twist in order to be able to adjust the wiper speed in the front. And then you can adjust your back wiper there as well. Flash out your high beams, lock them out. And actually that's one thing. So in order to be able to permanently lock your high beams out, you have to be out of the auto mode. So inside of or just by your left knee, can you see? There you go, perfect. So you see this guy down by the left side here? So you'd have to be, I'm right now in the auto mode and you can't lock out the high beams. So if you go into the lights on mode instead, you could then lock out your high beams by pushing away. So if you want your high beams to be able to lock out, you just have to be in the out of the auto mode. Because when you're in the auto mode, it's essentially auto high beam. So it's going to turn your high beams on as necessary and then dim them or turn them off if you've got an oncoming vehicle. But like I said, it can flash out to warn people of cops and all that fun stuff. You've got your speedometer off to the left side, along with your current engine temperature, your fuel gauge along the middle, what gear you're currently in. So park, reverse, neutral, drive. Then you can drop into a dedicated manual mode. And when you're in the manual mode, you've also got the flexibility of seeing what gear you're in as you go. So gear 1, gear 2, whatever the case may be. So it's very straightforward there. But let's zoom in a little bit and focus in on the cluster. And the only thing that I'm going to change out here as I go, or use, I should say, as I go, are going to be the buttons along the side. So the first one is this little menu button, and that's going to bring you to this main menu. So you've got My View, trip counters, off-road, and a few other things. So if you go to My View, this is your My View. So you could customize it a little bit so you can remove screens. So you've got a maximum number of screens that you can use. So if you find that you can't add any more screens in because they're grayed out, you've just added too many things in. So you could go to a trip counter instead. What else? Pitch and roll, power distribution. These are actually all good options here. Transmission temperature, and let's keep it on turbo boost. Okay, perfect. And you're going to go back and then you can scroll through all of these options. Calming screen I like because, give it a second, look at that, stretches it out right across. And then if you get rid of that lane keeping system as well, nice and big. That's as customized as you're going to be able to get this thing though. So there's not really much customization options available other than that. But moving back down, you've also got your fuel economy, trip counters, and you can reset any of these by pushing and holding the OK button on the steering wheel. So it resets and you're good to go. off-road, you can see if you've got an axle locked, unlocked, whatever the case may be. So if you are, let's go to 4 low for a second so that you can see what's going on. It's going to take a second in order to shift. Perfect, there you go. So you can see currently in the 4 load mode right now. And then if I disconnect, so you can see all of the disconnecting options happening there. Really neat. Hopping back into 4 auto. So different modes will require you to shift out into a neutral in order to be able to shift, but it's going to show you what mode you're currently in along the very bottom there. You can also see how many kilometers you have to empty, and then your current odometer along the bottom right-hand side there too. But moving back, you've also got vehicle pitch and roll. So as you go to rotate the wheel, you can see your turning angle's changed, and then pitch and roll. So you can see if your vehicle's tilting up or down, and then on the bottom, if it's tilting to side. So very useful if you're going off-road. Power distribution, you can see which wheel is getting which amount of power. And then you can also see your current turbo boost as well. Or you can go back in order to customize this and change out which options are currently showing up there. So it is kind of nice. And then as you have other things like trail turn assist and things like that, you've got to be and a few other options there, but different options will show up right along the very bottom as you enable or disable certain things. So even things like traction control, you toggle that off, that's going to show up. 4-way blinkers, all that fun stuff. Really straightforward. Now, if you go into this menu button, you've got your My View, or you can go right into trip counter. So fuel economy, average speed, auto start stop, all that fun stuff. So if you go into average speed, it jumps you into something a little bit different than what we just saw. Same idea, we go back and then into off-road pages instead. Same idea, we go into this sub menu and this is all of our off-road information instead. So power distribution, tire pressure, all of your different gauges, turbo boost. So you'll get a little bit of a theme here that as you go into your main menu, that's a few other options available. Let's see, let's go to a point of interest icon nearby. Food, let's just randomly select, ooh, Tim Hortons. Let's go for something a little bit further away. Tim Hortons, a little bit further away.
Traffic laws. Be alert and use voice commands while driving.
There we go.
Turn right and then turn left.
So right inside of the cluster, you'll get a little map, which is kind of, or I guess turn-by-turn direction, which is kind of nice. It's like it now, and it doesn't get any bigger than that. So that's as big as you're looking there. It's kind of neat that that's available. So right through the cluster screen, which is nice. If you go back home into this menu, into navigation, you can cancel the route, or back into navigation, previous destinations, point of interest icons, and all that fun stuff. If you've got a phone connected, you can make phone calls, look at missed calls and all that, and things like that. Audio, AM, FM, Sirius XM. There's a USB stick on here. You could play all, shuffle, now playing, all, and AM, FM. If you wanted to switch out to a station that way, you could also do that. Pushing back. Also have a few more advanced settings, so you could change it out to miles or kilometers there. As you can see, it doesn't change up this odometer along the bottom. It just changes up your displayed vehicle speed there instead. Flip it out to neutral tow, and you can also look at your oil life. So if you're changing oil yourself, you could reset it if you want to. Same idea by pressing and holding the OK button as well. So there's a lot of information here. Like I love that you can kind of see turn-by-turn directions right inside of the cluster screen. That's kind of nice. And one other thing that's a little bit unique is inside of the infotainment system. If you go into, actually let's go settings, display, you've got different modes that are available. So there's auto mode, day or night. So this thing is technically in the daytime mode, so both of these, but you could also flip it out into the nighttime mode instead and lock it out to this blue color. So if you're a bigger fan of having the blue setup, just lock yourself out to the night mode. You can lock yourself out to the day mode, or best bet, just have yourself an auto for the vehicle to determine if you're in the day or the nighttime mode, just depending on how bright it is outside. Now on brightness, just by your left knee, so you can also see right by that selector switch, there are a few other buttons there. That's going to let you increase or decrease the brightness of the cluster screen, and then you can see the infotainment system darkening and brightening there as well. So you've got the flexibility to be able to adjust the brightness that way instead, or like I said, you can just rely on the vehicle to adjust it just depending on how bright it is outside for you. So I know that's quite a little bit of information, but that's everything you need to know about the steering wheel as well as the cluster screen inside of the Ford Bronco.